For our computer-based test, we are going to create a planning page to organize our thoughts before we type our responses on the computer. This planning page is a non-negotiable because it helps us to organize our thoughts and to quickly get our evidence down so that we can type faster. We always need a plan before we type. So let's create the planning page together. So holding your paper vertically, you're going to fold it into 3 sections. And open it up like this. Then at the top of the paper, in the first crease, go ahead and draw a line straight across. Folding the paper first helps us to be sure that our lines are nice and straight. Then go ahead and draw another straight line in the second crease. In the center, draw a line down the middle. Now let's label our sections. At the top of your paper, you're always going to write your name and date. Next to that, you're going to write the question number and the skill. The skill you will identify when you mark up the question. Underneath your name and date, you're going to write title. And you're going to write the title of the text that you're reading. Then directly under that, you're going to write RA for your restate and answer. In your center boxes, you're going to write CE number 1 for cite evidence number 1 and CE number 2 for cite evidence number 2. On the bottom, you're going to write your E for your explanation. So this is how we set up our annotation sheet when we're taking a computer-based test and we're planning out our short responses in the RACCE format. Now let's practice with constructed response number 1 from the text, "Thank you, ma'am." But before we do that, let's review our annotations from when we did this text on the computer. As a reminder, all of your computer-based tests will be using an annotation sheet. So you will have one for your notes with your genre-based thinking job codes. And if you are doing a short response, you will have a RACCE annotation sheet like this. So let's review our thinking jobs and our annotations from "Thank You, Ma'am" by Langston Hughes. So the setting of this text was in the street, in the neighborhood, 11 o'clock at night in Harlem. Character traits, motivation, character feelings, and character perspectives are our next 2 boxes. So let's go through them to refresh our memory about what we learned about the characters. We learned that Roger wants a pair of new shoes, blue suede shoes. We learned that the woman is strong and tough, Miss Luella Bates. We also learned that Miss Luella is a woman who is nurturing and loving. Notice that for my character traits, all my character annotations, in fact, I have included the paragraph number. Character perspective. Luella thinks that the boy should feel ashamed for his actions. A character feeling the boy has is he is sorry he tried to steal from the woman. A character feeling is he feels nervous. Character perspective is that the boy knew the woman shouldn't trust him in paragraph 34. So what's the problem in the story? Well, an external conflict is that Roger tries to take Luella's purse, but she resists and grabs him, and she drags him home with her. An internal conflict that Roger is having is he doesn't know what to do in Luella's home. Should he run or should he stay? Here are some attempts to resolve. Luella feeds the boy and allows him to clean up. Luella relates to Roger's situation And Roger offers to go to the store and help the woman to make up for his wrongdoing. So what's the solution? Luella gives Roger money and advice for the next time he needs something. She tells him that he should ask for help. What's the lesson learned? Well, Roger learned to ask, to communicate his needs instead of stealing. Help can come from an unlikely place if you are honest. That is the universal message in the story. So now that we refreshed our memory of this text, we're going to practice with constructed response number 1 from the text. Question 1 reads, how does Mrs. Jones' interaction with Roger in paragraphs 30 to 35 contribute to the development of the theme? Provide 2 pieces of evidence to support your answer. So, on our annotation paper, let's go ahead and write the title. Thank you, ma'am. What should we do when we see a question? We have to mark it up. How do we mark up when we're using scrap paper? We write the question number and we write the skill. What is the skill in this question? The skill in this question is relationship impact on the theme. Let's jot that down now. Next, we need to locate our evidence. What should we do after we've marked up the question? That's right, we locate our evidence. Where should we look for evidence? Based on my annotations, I'm going to start looking in paragraphs 30 to 35. So you can scroll on your paper while I flip on my physical copy. And I've already highlighted some evidence that I'm going to use for this question. Is that the only place we need to look? No, because we need to think about the impact it has on the theme. So we may need to look for evidence after this section as well. Let's read over paragraphs 30 to 35. As we read, we're thinking about the impact the interaction had on the theme. Paragraph 30. Well, you didn't have to snatch my pocketbook to get some suede shoes, said Mrs. Luella Bates Washington Jones. You could have asked me. Ma'am? The water dripping from his face, the boy looked at her. There was a long pause, a very long pause. After he had dried his face and not knowing what else to do, dried it again. The boy turned around, wondering what next. The door was open. He could make a dash for it down the hall. He could run, 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 run. The woman was sitting on the daybed. After a while, she said, I were young once, and I wanted things I could not get. There was another long pause. The boy's mouth opened. Then he frowned, but not knowing, he frowned. The woman said, You thought I was going to say but, didn't you? You thought I was going to say, but I didn't snatch people's pocketbooks. Well, I wasn't going to say that. Pause. Silence. I have done things too, which I would not tell you, son. Neither tell God if he didn't already know. So you sit down while I fix us something to eat. You might run that comb through your hair so you will look presentable. Which pieces of evidence from this section showcases Mrs. Jones' interaction with Roger? And what do these pieces of evidence reveal? Well, in paragraphs 33 to 34, the quote that says, I were young once, and I wanted things I could not get. The boy's mouth opened, then he frowned. And paragraph 35, you thought I was going to say, but I didn't snatch people's pocketbooks. I have done things too, which I would not tell you, son. So sit down while I fix us something to eat. Here's where we ask ourselves which pieces pieces of evidence, which piece of evidence shows the impact or result of Mrs. Jones' interaction with Roger? So where do I need to look? What do these pieces of evidence reveal? Well, I can make the inference that Mrs. Jones is not judgmental towards Roger because she was once in his shoes and doesn't consider punishing him. Let's look at paragraph 36. In another corner of the room, behind a screen, was a gas plate and an icebox. Mrs. Jones got up and went behind the screen. The woman did not watch the boy to see if he was going to run now, nor did she watch her purse, which she left behind her on the daybed. But the boy took care to sit on the far side of the room where he thought she could easily see him out of the corner of her eye, if she wanted to. He did not trust the woman not to trust him, and he did not want to be mistrusted now. That last line from paragraph 36, he did not trust the woman not to trust him, and he did not want to be mistrusted now, makes me think that Roger changed from being sneaky to wanting to be trustworthy because of Mrs. Jones' interactions with him. So since we already found our evidence, let's place it in our planning page immediately. And we're going to choose the strongest piece of evidence. So for cite evidence number 1, let's use paragraph 35, the part where it says, "You thought I was going to say, but I didn't snatch people's pocketbooks. I have done things too, which I would not tell you, son, so sit down while I fix us something to eat." Let's jot that down in our paper for cite evidence number 1. And for my second piece of strong evidence, I'm going to go with paragraph 36, the line where it shows the impact of her actions on Roger. Paragraph 36 where it says, "He did not trust the woman not to trust him, and he did not want to be mistrusted now." Let's write that down. Let's discuss. Based on our evidence, how does this interaction between Mrs. Jones and Roger impact the theme? For my restate and answer, I want to write a quick bullet or two on the inference and then elaborate later when I'm typing out my response. Even though I'm writing quick notes on my annotation sheet, they still need to make sense. Let's go ahead and write our restate and answer now. Our restate and answer can sound like kindness/not judging equals people change better than with punishment. Because that is the impact of Mrs. Jones' actions on Roger. Let's jot that down on our note paper now next to our A for restate and answer. Remember, when you type your response, you're going to take this restate and answer and turn it into a complete sentence to answer this question. Now, we have our evidence already here that helped us to come up with our answer. Now we're going to write our context for the evidence that we have. How do we write context for our evidence? We summarize the moment that occurred before the cited evidence to help our reader understand its importance. So what happened before evidence number 1? What context should we provide? Before evidence number 1, paragraph 35 here, Mrs. Jones insisted that Roger stay at her house for a moment so that she could clean him up. Let's write that down. What happened before evidence number 2? What context should we provide? Before evidence 2, paragraph 36, Mrs. Jones showed that she trusted Roger in her home, which made Roger start to second guess his actions. Let's write that down. To complete our planning page, we need to plan out our explanation. What new revelation can we connect to the theme of the story? Similarly to our restate and answer, we should write our explanation in bulleted form. When we type our responses, we will take these notes and put them into complete sentences. So for our explanation, we could write power in second chances and paying it forward. This represents that there is power in giving people second chances. It can help change their actions. And paying it forward is a great way for you to make up for actions that weren't so great. Like when Roger offered to go to the store for Ms. Zuella Jones. So let's write those bullet points down. And then when we type our responses, we can use that to form complete sentences for our explanation. So let's write those bullet points down now.